Hey everybody, I'm Daniel Ryan from Vendito Consulting. I'm on the podcast today talking about my journey changing into a new industry in recruitment in the last year. I hope you enjoy.
Before we get into it, let's give people a little bit of a background on what you do, where you've come from. I'm going to give the high level brief overview and then we'll start filling in the gaps.
Sure.
If that's cool.
Sure.
So at the moment you're a commission-only recruiter,
Mm-hmm.
which not many recruiters are commission-only these days. It's a tough gig to be a com-only recruiter. You've been in the industry for 8 months?
8 months, 9 months, yeah.
9 months?
Yeah.
What have you built in your first, with no recruitment experience, what have you built in your first 8 months?
Jeez, $1 million question, right? Not quite, but so I've built about 750, just under 750.
Okay, so you've built 750. It's your first 8 months in recruitment. Insane numbers, and we'll get to that in a moment. Before you got into recruitment, though, and you decided to completely change career paths, what exactly were you doing?
Look, I've done quite a few things over the career of my life. So I've, the most recent, I was a GM for a national business, and I managed teams all around the country, from Adelaide to Sydney to Melbourne to Brisbane, and I've managed teams. I've managed businesses for the last maybe 10 years, from sales management to CEO to GM, and I had teams doing what I do today, right? So I had people in the business that were very good at what they did, and I was basically managing them. And so it was a flooring company. Maybe we should. I think that was bad. What would you like me to kind of, in this particular part? What would you like me to?
Whatever.
The whole journey, or
Yeah. Just speak from the heart, my man.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah. So you were starting at you were in a flooring company before this as a GM?
Yeah, so I was a GM in a flooring company. I looked after quite a big team all around the country. And then previously to that, probably the biggest stint that I had was working at Winning Appliances, which a lot of people know. It was a great experience. We did quite a lot of great things at Winning Appliances, had a pretty big team. I did a few things at Winning Appliances, but mainly looking after the flagship showroom in Dang Street in Sydney. We had chefs, we had front of house, we had a huge team, over 20 salespeople. So it was a big business, great business.
What do you mean chefs?
We had chefs. So it was quite unique, right? So if you think about going into a shop today, right? What we found was a lot of people were waiting, right? And what do you do when people wait? We look after them. We give them service. And, we had some great chefs in the business, and they were doing, when I started, they were doing, cookies and, cooking classes and so on. But, when I left, we were basically, when people would come into the showroom, we knew that people sometimes would wait up to about an hour, right? And we wanted them to be entertained. We wanted them to have a good time, even before they started talking to a salesperson, right?
Mm.
So we had a chef prepare food, if they wanted to come and have a cheeky cooking class, before they start talking to a product expert about what ovens or what kitchen or what fridge they want to buy. And we really started the experience from the start, from the moment they got there. Front of house greeted them, they were walked over to the kitchen area to where we had some great chefs. We had a charming Italian chef that really got them excited about the journey before they even spoke to anybody about what they want to buy. And so there's some of the things that we did, creating some really interesting journeys for the clients, and then just streamlining the experience, even though they waited for a longer time. How long have you waited in a shop these days for more than 5 minutes, right?
Oh, you wouldn't even last 5 minutes.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Right, I'm done with this, right? So we tried to really change the way people had an experience when they had to wait for such a long time.
That's amazing. So you're successful general manager, managing teams basically for the last 10 years or so. And then I mean, I'll just call the elephant out in the room. Then you took a step back into recruitment.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting crossroads for me at my life, right? So I'm in my 40s.
Midlife crisis, was it?
Is it back? Is it forward?
Well, on face value, I think the natural sentiment would be Dan is a big dog at these really good businesses, managing teams, successful, etc. And then all of a sudden has a midlife crisis and becomes a recruiter.
On the surface, that's what everybody thought, right?
Yeah.
But internally, right? And I'm glad you asked the question, because I it's a story that I'd love to share with everybody that's watching, right? And listening to this, because I got to the stage when I know what success looks like, right? I've sold, I used to sell cars for a very long time, almost 2 decades of selling cars, right? And I was very good at what I did. I had a great network of people. People trusted me, and then I got headhunted to go to winning, for example, and then I got to a stage in my life in my 40s that I was like, what am I not enjoying about my work, my life, right? And the biggest thing that I noticed was I managed so many people. There were some days that I'd onboard 5 or 6 people in one day, right? Onboarding one person is enough, right? So, it got to the point when I was like, what is the part of my life or my work life that I'm probably enjoying the least? And managing people was one of those things that I just, managing people was one of those things that I could have done without, right? Because I enjoy selling, I enjoy building networks. All my life and my career, I've enjoyed putting people together, right? So I'm sitting there going, okay, I don't really want to manage anymore. I still want to be in the industry, in the design and construction industry, or A&D industry. And what do I do? And I was actually a client of Vendito, right? Funny enough, right? So I'll tell you what happened internally. Why the hell would you do this, right? Because people thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, I think you thought I was crazy.
I did, mate. I sat you down a few times. I'm like, mate, I just really want to make sure this is the right move for you.
Right. And people thought, what is Dan going through right now, right? And to be fair, internally, I was like, I want to do something for me. I want to do something that makes me successful, because I know what success looks like. I know what it feels like. I want to go back to that world, to that feeling, right? And Amy Thomas, shout out to Amy Thomas. She was my recruiter. She loved what she was doing. She was very good at what she did. And I could see how much joy she had from putting people together. And she employed quite a lot of people for us in the businesses that we were working in. And I said to Amy, you know what? I'm going to take some time off right now. I'm going to think about what I'm going to do.
What was her reaction?
And she's like, what?
One of our good clients was about to pull the pin on her. What? She was thinking, no, don't do that, Dan.
She said to me, Dan, are you sure about this? I said, yeah. Look, I think I've got to the stage when I need to think about what is next for me for the next 10 years, right? Because I want to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy what I do. I want to do something a little bit different. I'm just not sure what that is yet, right? And there's so many people that think that every day, right? After Christmas, most people think about it, right? They're like, I've had 3 weeks off now, or 2 weeks off. What's next for me, right? And I thought that at that moment in my life, what do I do next? And I called her. I think she was probably the first person. I'm like, hey, I'm just wanting to let you know I'm gonna take some time off. And she was quite upset at me. And then I think about 2 weeks after that, I called her and I said, hey, what's recruitment like, right? Because over the span of my career, one thing that I did really well was putting people together, putting teams together that even until today, some of the people that I've worked with, that I've mentored or managed or just work side by side with, they're still friends, right? They still love each other. They still care about each other. They still support each other in different businesses, right? And I thought I could probably do that for a
How did you
living.
work, what was your process to working this out? Like, was it a reflection with a glass of wine while the decks are spinning? Was it just going on walks every day to figure it out? Was it an itemized list?
It was probably all of the, but probably not lists, right? I'm not a big list kind of guy, you know, but it was a lot of reflection, right? It was a lot of, what am I really good at? What are my strengths? What is the value that I can bring to this world, to the community, to people, to the industry? And I thought networking is something that I've always loved. And, you know, even as a young kid, all my friends would say to me, Dan, you just walk into a room and you just talk to everybody, right? You walk out, you know the restaurant owner, you know the person that's going to make some decisions, you get free drinks for everybody. Like, how do you do it, right? And that's something that I really love doing. And I've got a bit of a weird and kind of a freaky ability to remember people, right, for a long time. So I'd walk into, let's say, a restaurant and a waiter was looking after us in a restaurant many years ago. Did you work at X, Y, and Z? Cool. You really looked after us that time, or whatever it would be, the situation would be. And they'd be completely freaked out. They'd be like, this guy's a bit strange, or he just has a good memory, right? So networking and remembering people and situations and what they do, and, you know, the you know, where we met and what happened, if it's a client, if it's a candidate, it really helped me kind of build a really good network. So I went back to my wife and I said, I think I'm going to give recruitment a go, right? She's like, recruitment? Really? I said, yeah, I think I've seen what Amy does. I've seen how much she loves what she does. She's very good at it. We've got a great relationship because we've been working together. I was her client for a year. And she believes in me. I believe in myself. I want to back myself for the first time. I want to do something that will really make me happy and change our lives. And she said, oh, okay. And then we went through the experience of, you know, coming to you and having that conversation. And that was quite funny. Or maybe you want to expand on that.
Yeah, expand on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Tell us. What was that like?
But, you know, it was weird because I'm in my 40s, right? And most recruiters are quite young, right? They get into this quite young. It's a high energy business. There's a lot of work that goes into recruitment, and we can probably talk about that a little bit more later. But, you know, I meet with you, you know, and Amy, and you're like, dude, what's going on here, right? Something wrong?
Exactly.
Right? You're like, dude, you were really successful. Now you want to do something completely different? And I thought, yeah, right. And because I knew what my worth is. I knew what I could do. A lot of people that have worked with me know what I can do, you know, and a lot of my clients, I have actually clients that I met 15 years ago that I recruit for today, right?
Wow.
Which is quite crazy, right? But so we met, and maybe you want to tell your side of the vision, because it was quite funny, I think, for you.
I remember Amy coming to me and saying, hey, I think Dan, I think he wants to get into recruitment. I think he'd be a gun. I said, tell me more about Dan. She goes, oh, we've been working together, great energy, just like gets it. Was using a lot of like intangible kind of lines, like gets it, gun, hungry, motivated. I'm like, okay, but tell me about Dan. Like what's the go? Where's he from? What's he used to? You know, this big salary, was a general manager, managing teams. And look, I'm going to confess here. I said to Amy, Amy, I give this zero chance of happening. She's like, no, he's really keen. I'm like, Amy, I'll give this zero chance of happening. Like, he's in a really good spot at the moment. Taking a step back to a recruiter, it's just going to be like, he's going to get eviscerated from just this massive life change. Is he going to be ready for that? Amy goes, he's ready for that. I was like, all right. She's like, I think you should meet him. I was like, all right, I'll meet him. Let's meet him. And then, yeah, when we sat down and we were talking, I was like, for some reason, I don't know why, but I felt like I already knew you. And I've said this to you a couple of times. I felt like we've met before.
Yeah.
and you spoke well, you were confident, but you weren't like, you didn't have an ego. So it was like this really nice blend of, I'm going to back myself, I'm going to bill a lot. I remember when we were on onboarding, you're like, what do the girls bill out there? I said, oh, they bill this. And you were like, yeah, I'm going to beat them in my first year. And I went, oh, mate, if you do, that'll be awesome. You know, they've been at it for, 5 years now. Mm. And I almost wanted to try and see if I could turn you off a little bit.
Yeah, I got that feeling for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And so...
How'd you try and do that?
Oh, I basically said, look, 2 and 3 people don't make it past 6 months in recruitment. Yeah. Are you ready to... Are you ready to roll the dice and essentially have a 66% chance that you're going to fail? Like, how does that make you feel? And Dan goes, mate, I'm not going to fail. I'm going to do this. I reckon I can do this. I said, I was like, well, if you're going to be able to do it anywhere, it's got to be here, because with Vendito, with Recruiter, we've got infinite resources to try and make sure that you're successful. You're going to be recruiting in an industry that you're familiar with people that you're familiar with. So I guess if there's any place to be successful as a recruiter, it'll be here. And then we went for it.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was did onboarding. Learned a lot about the business, and I think we were talking about this earlier. A lot of the insight that I had for the recruitment field was your podcasts, right? Mm. So I was listening to them in the morning, understanding what people are thinking, what they're doing, and I really wanted to master the recruitment. I wanted to think like a recruiter, but also have a layer of understanding business, which I'm very fortunate to be able to work with a lot of people over the years, manage people, hired people, onboarded people. Unfortunately, had to fire some people over the years, and I really understand the challenges and the risks that business owners, GMs, CEOs, team leaders, sales managers have. Right. Mm-hmm. You can have one person that can completely change the trajectory of the business, unfortunately, sometimes. So I wanted to really master that and have a completely different outlook. And I say to people, I'm not a normal recruiter. I'm not. I'm somebody that has a sense and an ability to look at people completely differently to anybody else, because I've had to train and mentor people over the years, and it's challenging sometimes, right? People have their own agenda sometimes, and they, some people think that they know, we've spoken about this in the past. Some people they think they know how they're going to be successful, right? But, after many years, what success looks like. And success is consistency. It's not just selling. It's not just being the top salesperson. It's working with a team. It's it's doing a whole lot of other aspects to making yourself successful. So I wanted to learn, and mate, the first month of recruitment, I tell you, it was.
Tell us about your first month.
Wow. Well, you're talking about backing myself, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'd wake up in the morning sometimes, and I worked with really big teams, right? Some of the teams I had 20 or 30 people working, with me, and going from huge teams to a small team, right? And working remotely too. That really builds character. I can tell you that, right? And, for anybody out there, and I know you guys have so many great recruiters that join the ex-recruiter team. It's one of those things like, how do I do this on my own? For the start, right? At the start, you're in your head, right? You've got to motivate yourself. You've got to make sure that that you know what you're doing and you're heading in the right direction, right? So, first month was basically every morning waking up going, I'm too old for this, right? I need to make that many calls a day. I need to talk to that many people, but day by day, it became so much more fun, right? Now, I've come from a world that no was every day, right? selling cars in my early 20s, you get people say no to you every day, 20 times a day, right? So it builds that, thicker, layer of skin that you need. And, being a recruiter in the first month is not easy, right? It's one of the hardest things I think I've ever done, right?
Really?
The hardest thing.
Why?
Because I'm very fortunate, right? So there's two aspects of this. I know a lot of people in the industry, so a lot of people trust me. That made it a lot easier for me. But for the people that I didn't know, right, trying to convince them, trying to actually talk to them, because when you say you're from a recruitment agency, most people want to hang up on you, right? And that's something that I discovered, right? They're like, oh, no. I've had 100 calls today. I don't want to talk to you, right? So trying to get through that barrier is quite difficult, and you need to be very confident, and it can really shatter your excitement for the day when you've had 10 or 20 no's, and like a couple of them are not that pleasant no's, right? But you get through it, and having somebody on your team that really supports you, and again, shout out to Amy Thomas. Having somebody that's done it for a while that kind of gives you the guidance, and it's okay, you'll get through it. You'll work out what you need to do, and just having somebody there to support you, and having the community around you, with you guys, and being able to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm going through this. This is happening to me today. How do I get through it? Like, thinking like a recruiter is very different to just a normal role, a normal job, right?
How do most people think when they're in sales mode for, say, a flooring company? I don't imagine you'd be ripping the phones, doing everything you can, or is it the same sort of mentality? I feel like it would be a little bit more reactive, retail. Oh, this person came in, let's give them a good experience. Or is it as proactive as what recruitment is?
So in many products, right? So if it's lighting, flooring, furniture, most of these businesses have a reputation, right? So if it's a designer or an architect that loves, let's say, a particular business or a particular brand, they're going to want to specify it, right? So a lot of the work sometimes is done by the person that has the vision or the specifier. But equally, if you're selling a product that doesn't have a brand, you've got to get out there and sell. It's not simple, because there's so many lighting companies, so many furniture companies, there's so many flooring companies, there's so many options that people have today. What makes you better, or what makes you more unique? Is it the color? Is it the finish? What is it that is going to get you across the line? Now, in that aspect, there's so many decision makers, right? So there's the visionary, there's the client, there's the builder that obviously wants to make a margin on their product. So things can change very quickly, and it's not simple. It's not easy, I think, when it comes to the specification. Well, that's stuff that I've learned over years, right? Because if you were in recruitment for the first year and you didn't know any of that, it's a very different conversation, right? Because when I'm talking to business owners, to GMs, to whoever's making the decision, I can have a very different conversation to them. And that's what made it, a lot easier for me, because when I'm talking to a business owner and I'm saying, I understand the risks that you're running, and I understand the cost of bringing somebody into the business, and I understand what a really successful salesperson, BDM, GM, sales manager looks like, right? And feels like, right? And I can very quickly tell if somebody's very good or somebody thinks they're very good, right? And there's a lot of people out there that really think that they're incredibly good, but there's a lot more learning to be done, right, over their career.
So it sounds like you were in a position where you could, and we say this a lot at Ex-Recruiter, but language of leaders, talking about what's the risk of making a bad hire, what's the impact of making a good hire, what are you responsible for, and how can this role get you to achieve your goals as a leader? Yeah. A lot of recruiters just go, I've got a candidate, they've got 2 years experience at a competitor, would you be interested? And it's very product driven. Yeah. Sounds like you're approaching this from a solution consultative standpoint as a leader, as a business equal, which is amazing. Yeah. Talk to me about your call volume the intensity, your outputs. Because one thing that I was concerned about from coming from a leadership style role, the tempo of a leader is cool, calm. It's brought right back. It's dealing with a few internal people. It's not so much client facing as much as being on the front line. And then going to becoming a recruiter, and I can't remember exactly the numbers that I gave you, but I said, mate, you're going to have to be doing 60 or 70 calls a day. Are you prepared for that? And you said yes, but not many people actually are in reality. And you surprised me because that's how many calls a day that you make. Mm. You know, we speak to some recruiters who make that amount of calls in a whole week, let alone in one day.
Right.
And so I would love to be able to understand how you were able to go from low tempo, and if I'm wrong here, just let me know, but low tempo to not as much outbound, proactive, client-facing, to all of a sudden completely having to reimagine your energy to go, all right, I'm the front line, I'm the tempo, I'm got to put in these outputs. Like, how did you manage going from low tempo to high tempo?
Yeah, so I think maybe one thing I didn't touch on at the start of why I wanted to move out of what I was doing, I was traveling a lot too. So I was, you know, going all around the country, and there was a lot of work to go into traveling, staying, meetings, calls. So the tempo was there, but it was different, right? And, you know, when I came into recruitment, you know, at the start, to be fair, I was like, I got to make this many calls, right? And you do it, and you're like, this is a lot of work, right? How do people do this, right? But to be fair, and this is some of the stuff that when you onboard your partners in Text Recruiter, you know, Matt Cossins, shout out to Matt, great guy. He talks about routine. He talks about things that I probably know because I've done this in the past, but it reminded me of how to set up the day. What do you do? What's your routine? How do you, you know, in the morning? So basically my routine is I wake up, I call new business, I work out who's doing what, because I've got some great candidates I'm already speaking with that I can put in front of them very quickly, very easily. And I do that for the first 2-3 hours of the day, and then I just call candidates. And one thing that I love doing is just having conversations with people, right? Listening to them, understanding what's happening in their lives, understanding if they're enjoying their work, their role, if they're happy with the job that they're doing, and just getting to know people, right? And I think that, to me, it's not a call, it's a conversation. It's a hey, I haven't spoken to you for a couple of months, or hey, it's Daniel, I've never spoken to you before. What's happening, right? And just having these conversations, and it doesn't seem like a lot of calls. I think yesterday I looked at the count, it was like 60 calls, right? First day back from holidays. Yeah. Most people take it pretty easy. But I was like, I made some good calls. I met some really cool people, right? From all around the country, from Perth to Brisbane, to Sydney, to Melbourne. And I don't look at it as calls. It's what I need to do. And if you have the mindset of you're going to go in and meet a lot of people today and have a lot of cool conversations, 60 or 80, it doesn't matter, right?
I think that's really interesting, because a lot of people probably listening would be somewhat skeptical that someone could be essentially averaging 100K a month from month one when they first get into recruitment. That does seem like a very far-fetched, like for an average recruiter to be like, geez, how can someone be billing 700K in their first 7 months? What's actually going on here? So I think it would be really useful to, one, understand your mindset around, you're not thinking about how many calls you need to make, you're thinking about how many conversations can I make, is a really interesting point that you make. But second, like what that day looks like. So I think you mentioned the first 2 to 3 hours. What exactly are you doing? You're getting jobs on? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah. So I'll take it back. So the previous day, the day before, I would look through my hit lists. I'd look through who's looking to employ. and where can I add value? So what candidates am I speaking with? I'd put them in the hit list. I'd have them ready to go in the morning. So the CRM system that we use, great CRM system, by the way. I've used so many of them, from Salesforce to just AutoGate to all different types, Zoho and everything in between, right?
Yeah.
And Loxo really allows you, can I say the name?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And it really allows you to prepare for the day. So I have a call queue. I get in the morning and I literally call business owners, have a conversation, right? Some of them want to have a chat with me. Look, a lot of business owners, when they're having a conversation with me, they understand that I'm not just a guy that wants to send them candidates, right? I take.
What are you saying?
How do they think that?
So
Why?
I think the first thing is I want them to know who I am, right? So let myself be known to them, right? And the second thing is I let them know that I don't work as a normal recruiter, right? I am kind of a headhunter because I go and look for people. I don't tend to advertise a lot of my roles. I tend to go out to the market and find the best of the best. And I say to them, I know what a successful person looks like. I know what a hunter mentality is because I've been a hunter myself. I've trained people to be hunters or gatherers, right? And I understand what they probably need after talking with them for a short period of time, right? Just listening to what their pain points are, what the risks are that they have in the current situation that they're looking to fill, and what the team looks like, what the business looks like. And because I've been around in the industry, I know these businesses, right? I know the furniture companies, I know the flooring companies, I know the lighting companies because I've been around them, right? So I've got this, and I'm very fortunate to have this insight that not a lot of people know, right? And so I spend the first few hours calling new business, and that's
Advertised, if they're advertising,
advertised,
or it doesn't matter if they're advertising.
or just people that I've come across, over the years, being in the industry for quite a few years, you tend to learn who's doing what, and they might not be advertising, but you call them. You say, hey, what's
So
happening?
are you calling them to get to find out if they're hiring?
Most of the time, it's calling them to let them know who I am and what I'm doing, right?
Okay, cool.
Because not a lot of people, because I haven't really been advertising what I'm doing, a lot of people, if I don't call them and tell them, or if they're not on LinkedIn, they probably don't know that I've started something new and I've done something new. And a lot of people would like to hear what's happening, right? Because I've dealt with a lot of these architects, designers, suppliers over the years and built some great relationships with them. So why not tell them what I'm doing? And people that probably don't know me, I connect the dots. I talk about, their friend that they probably had dinner with last week that owns another business that I've helped them, find some great people and try and build a relationship with some of these great business owners to help me through, the trajectory of what I want to do, right? So it's really, again, it comes back to, and BD is probably one of the hardest things to do in recruitment, right? Calling somebody that doesn't know you, time poor, the last thing they want to do is talk to a recruiter, right? Like they've got so many things happening in the business. They've got team members and meetings and clients and P&Ls that they need to be looking at. The last thing they want to do is to talk to probably a guy that they've never met before. Because they might have a relationship with somebody already, or they might not like recruiters, right? And that's something that I've really discovered. I remember one of my first meetings, and sorry, I digress here, but I went into the meeting. It's like, all right, Dan, there's 4 reasons why I hate recruiters, right? X, Y, Z. Like, I was like, okay, all right. Have I made the right decision?
Yeah.
And you know what, to be fair, the funniest thing is I could genuinely sit there and say, I agree with you. They're the things that I really don't like to.
What did he say?
So one of the things that he said was, I don't like it, and I'm going to get a bit of hate on this one, I reckon. I don't like it when recruiters place a candidate and then after the guarantee period is up, they recycle them, right? I hate that. That's why I don't deal with recruiters. And I've never done recruitment before, right? But I do know what it feels like when a recruiter recycles my staff, my team members, right? I've spent 6 months training these amazing people. that are, you know, on the trajectory to be really successful. And I know as somebody that's been a leader, it's a lot of work, right? A lot of emotions, a lot of effort that goes into bringing people on board. Why the hell would I do that to my clients, right? I'm not here to just do a placement.
Place don't punch.
Right?
Like, I don't get it. Do you reckon it comes from like just they're desperate, they're lazy, it's an easy option, it's low hanging fruit? Because I don't know, as soon as you find that out, you would never deal with that recruiter again.
And reputation is everything, right? I've prided myself that I have a good reputation out there in the market. People trust me. And, you know, I've been very fortunate that going into recruitment has been successful for me because of those relationships, right? Why the hell would I try and jeopardize that for that main reason, right? You get a quick win and then you're never going to talk to them again. And guess what? The next time they have a conversation at a dinner table with their mate that owns another business and another mate that owns another business, what are they going to say? They're going to say, oh, that bloke, you know, Daniel Ryan, that bloke took one of my, like,
100%.
It happens, right?
I think a lot of recruiters probably don't have that kind of broader sense of what happens around the dinner table with all their friends. Because generally you hang out with people that are in a similar kind of sphere as you.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a business owner, you probably hang out with more business owners than you don't.
Yeah.
If you're a recruiter, you probably hang out with more recruiters owners if you don't. If you're an electrician, you're probably hanging out with lots of electricians.
Yeah.
And so when you burn one business owner
Yeah.
and they all get around and they start talking about recruitment,
Yeah.
as everyone does, because finding good staff is the number one challenge of every single business, which I don't think a lot of recruiters, that penny doesn't drop for many, many recruiters around how important their role really is. But when they get around when they get around the dinner table and they're all talking about recruitment, it can be your best friend if one guy has a really good experience with you and goes, oh my God, you need to speak to Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dan solved challenge 1, 2, and 3 from these reasons. And then it spreads like wildfire. All of a sudden you get referrals all the time, people love you, and you get this awesome momentum. But the opposite happens as well. If you're really narrow focused and going, I need to hit my threshold or else my boss is going to be shitty with me this quarter. This person's updated their profile on Seek. I know I placed them 6 months ago, but you know what? I'm just going to call them again and pretend that I'm not pitching them a new job, and if they happen to go, can you find me something, then I'll place them. Like, it's still the same outcome. And I think that's perhaps the strategy of a lot of recruiters. They'll see a good candidate that they've placed that have updated their profile. It'll give them a signal that, all right, maybe I can go have a chat to this person, and even though that's my client, technically they're looking anyway, so maybe I can place them, and it just gives it a massive, massive bad name.
Yeah.
Who's responsible? Do you reckon that's the obviously the business owner of that agency to enforce that culture?
I think it needs to be like the responsibility of the recruiter.
Grow up a bit.
And
understand what business looks like.
Because
Yeah.
I was about to say, Dan, you made a really good point that reminds me of how important recruitment is. And that point was, one person can change the trajectory of someone's business.
Absolutely.
And for me, I learnt that when my family run a business, and I helped recruit a national sales manager for them in their business very early on in my recruitment career. So I'm seeing my parents run their business. They need a national sales manager. At the time, I'm like, I'm going to headhunt the best national sales manager I can find. And so they were only just starting their business journey. They were probably 2 or 3 years in. I headhunted the national sales manager of L'Oreal because they run a hair and beauty business selling to hair salons. And at the time, I thought I did a really good job. But this guy bombed really hard. For 6 months, he was getting a massive salary, and he kept saying the reason why he's not getting new business is because he's got a restraint. I can't speak to them, blah, blah, blah. So my parents paid him a crazy salary for 6 months, realized that he just wasn't the right fit. He wasn't a hunter. He couldn't go out and get new business. And it set my parents back like significantly. And I was a little bit heartbroken. I was like, wow, I put my parents in this really bad position where I headhunted the national sales manager of this, like, because it was such a big company, he wasn't familiar with like that startup grind of getting your brand out there because he's been, leveraged on L'Oreal. And then when that happened, that was when the penny dropped for me to go, wow, I could literally, in my role recruiting for other clients, I could really negatively impact their business if I just, on paper do my job.
Yeah.
how much impact could I have if I found a really good, and then I ended up finding a really great person. He got the role. He's been there like 6-7 years now, absolutely killing it, doing
Really?
a great job, and changed the trajectory of the business. Like you get one guy coming in on a small team and it's like, it's life-changing. And I think a lot of recruiters don't realize how much impact they really do have. And it just takes being more involved in business rather than being transactional to realize that. Yeah. And when you know you're making a big impact, you kind of have a little bit more drive and fire and hunger to do a good job. Yeah. And I think that's probably what you have, is you understand the impact. So it means a lot more to you.
Yeah, you know, I'm just thinking about what you're saying, right? The amount of sleepless nights that I've had because I've had people that were making it really difficult to have a successful team, or it's maybe one or two people that just didn't want to be successful, didn't see the value, or just didn't want to change, right? And the amount of sleepless nights that I've had thinking about how do I improve? How do I make this better? And, you know, I always cared for my team. You know, I always wanted to do the best for them. And, you know, now I take the approach that I want to look after my clients. If I do a good job and get them good people and they're successful and they're happy, I could change not only the candidates' lives, but the business owners' lives. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, when they have good people that come in, as you said, the hardest thing to do in any business is to find good people. It is the hardest thing. I can tell you from experience, it is so difficult because when you find them, they're like rare, right? And our job is really important, right? Yes, we can give them candidates that seem okay, but if we don't do all the due diligence and we don't really ask the right questions, we don't spend the time really working out what they are, they probably won't last, right? And, you know, I'm not saying that I'm perfect and I'm not an expert at this. I've only been doing this for 8 months, but I love changing people's lives. When they call me and say, Dan, thank you so much. Not only did you get me a pay rise, but I love what I do. I'm successful at it. The owner's amazing. You were right.
Well, think about the triangle of a sale when you're selling cars, for example. And this is where I reckon recruitment becomes so unique. Like, we both come from a car sales background as well. And you sell a car, either you're pumped because you're like, great, there's some gross profit in this puppy, I'm going to get good comms. But the customer's a bit like, I don't know if I actually got a deal here at all. And then, you know, they're happy, or well, they may be happy with the product. But the other way around as well, when the customer's really happy, you're let down and you're like, man, I know this is on driveway. I'm only getting $50 less super for this deal. This sucks. But the customer's really happy. Recruitment's one of those weird things where you're pumped, the client's pumped, and the candidate is pumped all at the same time. Yeah, if you want, like, if you're not honest and run a tight process, then there's going to be shit after. But if you do it right, I reckon it's one of the rare transactions. I don't know many other transactions.
It's a win-win-win scenario.
Yeah, there's not many other win-win-win-win scenarios.
And that's why today I think about what I do, and I love what I do. We were talking about this earlier, right? We were talking about people going into to work at 9 and then at 5 they clock out, they're done, that's it, right? Don't ask for more, right? And to be fair, working for different businesses, sometimes I had that mentality, right? I was like, oh, it's the weekend, I don't have time for this. Like, I want to go and spend some time with the family and what have you, right? But now, like, I love working hard. Like, I love getting up in the morning and trying to do the right thing by the candidate, by the clients, by everybody, right? And you can really make a big impact if you work hard at it, right? This is probably the only role that you can really make a big impact, right? There's only a few roles in different industries that you can really change people's lives, right? And a job is something that people spend more time than they spend at home at, right?
And why do you think there's such not negligence, or there's not just much investment in making sure that recruiters are professional, that there's training, that there's resources, and that's something we're really trying to spearhead. But I don't get it. Like, it, you know, you speak of how impactful it is, both being on the recruitment side now, but also being on the other side. Yet there's zero investment from many businesses on how to be better, how to understand that impact.
Look, I think, again, I'm no expert at this, right? So I'm talking through my experience and my just my observation, right? To be fair, people don't like recruiters, right? You talked about cars. People hate car salespeople, right? Like they are probably at the lowest of the low, right? And even back when I was selling cars or working in the car industry, I always wanted to be the better person, right? I wanted to sleep at night, right? I wanted to be able to say, I did a good job today. I looked after that person. Maybe I could have made more money out of them, but you know what? He's going to talk to his friends next weekend and show them their brand new car and say, Dan's the guy, right? And that is so much more impactful than somebody that just doesn't look forward, doesn't think about this business, this particular business. Let's say it's a lighting or whatever it is, a furniture business. If I do a really good job at 1 or 2 or 3, they will be clients for life, right? As long as you give them a reason to leave you, if you look after them and you really genuinely care about them, why would they go anywhere else, right? And I see that in everything and anything that anybody sells, right? If you have the approach of, I'm going to look after you, I need to make money, right? Every business needs to make money, but I'm going to look after you. And if you're happy with my service and you can see that I'm listening to you and I'm actually not trying to tell you what you should do, but I'm actually thinking, okay, this is what you want. How do I go to market and make that happen? You're going to win more than you're going to lose. And I think that's where, coming back to why, maybe some people could be desperate, it could be their paycheck that they need to pay the mortgage. And, when people are stressed out and, need to make income, you talked about commission only. Man, going commission only from having some salaries that came in, you'd wake up in the morning, you get paid, right? And going to commission only, that's a scary thing. Now, I've been broke before as a kid, right? Like, just growing up as a teenager, I know what broke looks like. That's a feeling I never wanted to have again. And I did have that when I started. I was like, not knowing where the next paycheck is coming from because there is no salary. That's terrifying. And you could do things when that happens. You could do things that are silly, but I don't want to do those things.
I'd love to learn about that mentality.
Yeah,
going to commission only. I guess firstly, what changed for you personally when going commission only? Because it's a new perspective on life most of the time. A lot of people are scared to go commission only because, to be fair, many people live above their means.
Sure.
And they can't go backwards. Maybe they would like to, but, car, house, family, life obligations, like life happens, right? But going to commission only is not just, it's not as simple as, okay, now I'm on com only and I've just got to watch what I spend, etc. It actually changes the psychology of how you think of a lot of things. So talk to us about that. What was that transition like for you? What was your mindset before going to com only? And then when you actually were com only, what did that look like from a personal level? Like how you looked at things, how you shopped. Did you start not shopping at Dolce & Gabbana and start going to Kmart? Like what did it actually mean for you in real life?
Everything changed. Everything changed, right? When you've got a salary coming in every fortnight or month, whatever it is, or if you're on commission and a salary, a lot of salespeople are, you get a really good comp check and you go and buy that nice watch or, go on a nice holiday. But when you go to commission only, something does change in your mind. And for anybody that's listening to that, about to come on board or thinking about coming on board with ex-recruiter, for example, it changes the way you look at things. You have a very different appreciation for what that money means and what you should do with it and not just spend it.
The value of the dollar.
The value of the dollar and, the value of, I think, the things that are important, right? I've got a friend, a good friend of mine, is a mentor of mine. He taught me that these things are not important, right? Nobody cares what new shoes you have. Nobody cares what you have, right? It's just not important. What is important, and that could be different to a lot of people. It could be family. It could be, you want to go and experience the world. You want to go and travel. You want to have fun with your friends. You want to go to a new restaurant. Whatever it is, that's important to you. And for me, it was what is important. Yeah, I used to buy nice suits. People that know me, I always used to have new suits and different colors, and I was always that guy that had, I cared about my appearance in terms of how I dressed because I was around people all the time. And then going from that to working in an office with remotely, it's not important anymore, right? And it shifted completely for me. And I'm actually really grateful that it did, right? I look at life completely differently now. I spend a lot more time with my wife. I really enjoy our time together, when before I was always, where are we going today? What are we doing today? What are we buying? It's just a different mindset, right?
Has much changed in her?
100% has, yes. My wife Lindy, she talks about how our lives have changed because we have so much time together. I'm not as stressed as I used to be because, running businesses is, people thinks it's easy. It's not. It's, being responsible for people and making sure that people are happy. For somebody that really cares about their team, it's relentless, right? And waking up in the morning and doing something that is important to me, and I know that I'm trying to do the best that I can for my clients, I finish at the end of the day and I feel I'm happy, right? You have some bad days in recruitment, let's not lie, but overall, I try and enjoy life more than I did before because I was always thinking about work. I was always, thinking about where's the next problem going to come up? What solution do we need to come up for that? Always strategizing on what's next. I just know that if I keep doing what I do, hustling away, calling, making some great connections, it's going to happen.
Okay, so, I mean, that's super inspirational. Like hearing that you've changed your life, you're happier at home, your relationship is better. You've gone from what traditionally is like, a really good salary to com only. Generally, that puts a lot of tension on relationships, puts a lot of tension and pressure on people in general. It almost sounds like it's had the opposite effect. And perhaps maybe it's a variety of different things contributing all in one, maybe going from being a people manager to now no longer being responsible for people. I think that sounds like it's the biggest factor of your happiness.
Sure.
Because
you're thinking about myself and the candidates and the clients, right? Or vice versa, the client and the candidate, right? There's a lot less pressure points or personalities or layers of complexity, right? And you're right. It is another thing though. I was committed to backing myself, right? And I said to my wife, Lindy, I said, hey, are you okay with me making this decision, right? Like going comms only is crazy for a lot of people, right? And she said, if you want to do this, do it. I'll support you. And she has. You've met Lindy, great person. And, that has been a really big part of why I've been able to do this. So it's been a cool.
Shout out to Lindy.
Shout out to Lindy.
Behind every good man is a great woman, they say.
100%.
So, do you reckon that, what did you bill in your first month? 75, 80 grand or more?
75, 80 grand, in the first month.
And so did that reinstill a hell of a lot of confidence?
It did, but one thing about me that I don't know if a lot of people know this, right? But I'm very tough on myself, right? If I build 70, I know that there's more left in the tank for me to do, right? And you talked about, the mindset. The mindset is it's not enough. You haven't worked hard enough, right? And I think if some people go into their jobs or their lives and they say to themselves, I need to do more. There's always 10% more that you can do. And that's what I do. I go in there, I'm like, I did 70, I need to do more, right? I'm not doing enough. And, I don't need people to say that to me, right? Like, I don't need, for example, if I was working in a business, my boss to say to me, Dan, you're not working hard enough, because I'm the hardest on myself, right? And that's where I think, I try to build on that every month, right? I'm the biggest critic of myself in everything that I do, right?
So 70K month in your first month of recruitment is huge. First quarter, what was your first quarter? It's like 360.
Yeah, it would have to be, yeah. If we're looking at
360 for your first quarter in recruitment. That's more than most recruiters bill an entire year.
So you will bill $1 million in your first year, unless
On track
to bill $1 million in your first year.
Hopefully, yes. I'd love to. That is, to me, it would be that's one of those goals that I set myself.
Not many people listening can even wrap their head around that.
They probably think I'm full of shit.
Because we're sitting across the table, it probably adds to that.
It's like, who's this bloke with the black jacket that looks like he hasn't ironed it, right?
It's pumped up.
It's just, honestly, I am very fortunate to have a great team. I've had the opportunity to come on board, and I am grateful for the opportunity to be part of this journey, because not everybody, as you said earlier, it's like, mate, this is not happening, right? Like, he's going to fail. But if you believe in yourself and you really want to do the best that you can, and you have a good network around you, like I'm really lucky to have somebody like Amy that I can talk to every day, all day. And we support each other. There's no competition. It's really, if I look after you, you look after me. That's it. It's a family, right? And I think if you're surrounded by people like that, and your community is really like that in Ex-Recruiter, all the people that I've met, they just want to look after you, right? And they want you to look after them, right? That's what a family is all about, right? And I think that's where the $1 million, you talk about the $1 million, I don't look at that. I'm thinking about, what business can I help next to grow their team? How can I support them? How can I listen to their challenges that they have? And who do I have in the network that I can lean on and say, hey, I think I've got a new home for you, right? And, I tend to find people that are the really great salespeople. And a lot of the roles that I recruited, I had one person in mind, and that person got the job, right? And I think that's where, I've been really fortunate, right? And I want to continue to be fortunate.
I think I said this to Deck. Deck goes to me, I think we're talking about, your first 3 or 4 months, and I'm like, mate, you should see what this fucking Dan guy's getting to. Like, he's crushing it at the moment. And Deck goes, really? What's he doing? And I said the numbers, and I'm like, the strange thing is, it's like one and dones every single time. It's just, here's one candidate, they get the job. Here's one candidate, they get the job. Statistically, in recruitment, there's an old type of stat that it's, you book in 5 interviews, and 3 of them will go. So you send 5 candidates, 3 will get an interview, 1 will get a job. That's kind of like the stats.
Yeah.
And so you're defying those stats, which is very impressive to see. So what do you focus on then? I know you said you want to bill $1 million, but you're not like every day, you're not waking up going, I want to bill $1 million. You're more thinking about your impact. What businesses can I help? Who can I help? Change their career, etc. But from a personal standpoint, just thinking a little bit more selfishly here, what goals have you got in your recruitment career that you've thought of that you really want to get to? What milestones are you thinking of, putting aside the billings? Do you ever see yourself growing a team? Do you see yourself starting your own agency one day? Like, where's your mindset at the moment for the future?
So I think, and we've spoken about this a little bit in the past, you've given me the opportunity to do this, right? And I'm grateful. And that's where, I'm very loyal when it comes to that. So I'm not starting my own recruitment agency. But what I would love to do, and what we will be doing this year, and we've got some plans that we'll talk about in terms of growing the Sydney team, right? And really having some really good people around us here in Sydney that will allow me to, instead of making 80 calls a day, and a lot of them are candidates, a lot of them are BD, having the ability to have somebody that can support the team in doing that and scaling it, right? So, expanding what we do, because I love, talking to my clients. I love meeting with them. And, when you're making 80 calls or 60 or 50 calls a day, it's pretty difficult to get out there and do a lot of that too, right? So I think, leaning on what I do best and what I enjoy and what I'm good at, that's the growth for us for at least for next year. So we've got plans to bring somebody on board and grow the team. And, you never know, we'll probably open up an office and probably in Surrey Hills. I think that was the plan to do that. So I think there's a lot of exciting things that we'd like to do. And, it's really day one, right? Like I've only been doing this for a short period of time, but I can genuinely see that there's a growth that we're going to have. We're going to have people come on board. You guys are in Brizzy. I'm in Sydney. I want a crew here too,
Get that office buzz back.
Right.
Yeah.
And I as much as I love working remotely, I miss people. I'm a people person. I've always liked to be around people, and and I've mentored a lot of and trained a lot of people over my career. I love doing that. I love making people successful. So I want to do more of that in this realm, because it's such a unique realm, right? It's not a standard sales job. It's really important.
Would you follow the same realm as you have? Like there would be a A&D specialist out there at the moment and say, hey, this is what I've done. Come join the crew and make a complete career shift? Or would you go down the recruiter route?
When I find the right person, right? Yeah. You know that person. You would have a conversation with somebody. Mate, I've interviewed somebody at a Christmas lunch table, right? I want you to come and work with me. Can we make that happen? And 3 months later, that person came and worked with me, and I love that person. We're still friends even today. So you'll find the person in the most unique places.
Yeah.
To answer the question, I don't know. Having recruitment understanding is important. But understanding business and people, I think, is really important too, right? People buy from people, right? If they don't like you, they're not going to buy from you, or they're not going to use your services, or they're not going to trust you, right? So I think that's probably what I'll be looking for. So if there's anybody out there that's listening,
100%. Yeah, we definitely need to do that. So, for anyone listening that wants to get in touch with Dan, we highly recommend you do. Dan, would you be open for people to reach out to you and talk to you and learn more about your experience if they're interested to find out more?
Absolutely.
So Dan.Ryan, is it Dan or Daniel?
Daniel.
Daniel.Ryan at venditoconsulting.com.au or Daniel Ryan.
LinkedIn.
Send a connection.
Send me a message. And I'd love to chat with you. Anybody that's even thinking about joining X-Recruiter and they're like, I've got a cushy job, I've got to pay, I don't need to really do too much. And they want to hear it from me, personally as to my journey. And I've had a few people reach out to me.
Have you?
Yeah, I've had people reach out to me and say, Dan, what was that like? Like, are you slightly crazy? And I'm happy to talk to anybody that wants to, even anybody that wants to make a change in their career, right? And not just recruitment, but anybody that's out there going, you know what, I really don't like what I'm doing. I'm in a place that, I'm just not feeling it, right? I'm not enjoying it anymore, right? And we all know what that feels like, right? Pick up the phone, give me a call, because I can tell you, changing your happiness at work will absolutely change your life. And joining, your family, mate, it's changed my life. So thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you.
No, thanks for coming on, brother.
Mate, this has been awesome.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be really cool for you to build your recruitment profile like what we're chatting out, because you've already achieved more than most ever do, right, in such a short time. So I think like building your online quote unquote personal brand, I think would add a lot of value and really help you elevate your profile and get people to know you way more.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, thank you again for joining us on Confessions, mate. It was awesome learning more about it, and hopefully more people reach out to you and want to spark your interest to get to know you more.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Cheers, legend.
Cheers.
Well done.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to another Confessions of a Recruiter podcast with Blake and Declan. We hope you enjoyed and got a lot of value and insights out of this episode. If you do have any questions or you would like to recommend someone to come on the Confessions podcast, we would love any introductions. And remember the rule of the podcast: like, share, and recommend it to a friend. Until next time.